Welcome to Story Loft. Today, we're diving into 3 heartfelt stories that remind us of the power of connection and the beauty of the holiday season. These uplifting stories are crafted to inspire and help us all find our place in the world that can sometimes feel overwhelming. If you enjoy what you hear, please click the like button and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us spread positivity and share more touching tales that resonate with so many people out there. And if you have a story of your own that you would like to share, we would love to hear it. You can send your stories to storyloft@outlook.com. You can find this address in the description below. Thank you for joining us in this celebration of love and the spirit of the season. Let's dive into these 3 stories that are sure to warm your soul. In the heart of the bustling city, where twinkling lights adorned every corner and the scent of pine mingled with freshly baked goods, a warm, inviting shelter stood. The streets outside were filled with the sounds of laughter and holiday music, which was a stark contrast to the feeling of loneliness that overwhelmed the people inside. As snowflakes danced through the air, one individual, Lena, made her way towards the shelter. Lena had always been drawn to helping others, but this year felt different. The holiday season was typically a time of joy and celebration for many, yet it stirred something deep within her. For years, she had buried her past. The memories of a traumatic childhood that haunted her, seemingly always hiding in the shadows waiting for her. But today, she felt compelled to confront those memories, hoping to find healing through the act of giving. As she entered the shelter, the cold from outside melted off of her. The vibrant decorations that staff and a few volunteers had hung brought a festive feeling to the otherwise stark and depressing environment. Colorful ornaments hung from the ceiling, and cheerful volunteers bustled around, preparing for the evening's festivities. Lena took a deep breath, wanting to leave, but reminding herself of why she was there in the first place. She was here to help others, to bring a bit of light into their lives, to let them know that people are thinking of them. "Hey, Lena," a familiar voice called out. It was Sarah, the shelter manager. "I'm so glad you could make it. We're just about to start setting up for the holiday dinner. Can you help with the decorations?" "Of course," Lena replied, trying her best to match Sarah's contagious energy. As they worked together, arranging garlands and hanging twinkling lights, Lena felt a growing happiness being there amongst the volunteers. Laughter echoed through the shelter as they shared stories and jokes, and for the first time in a long time, Lena felt comfortable and happy. The activities had relaxed her, and she was finally enjoying herself without the feeling of the shadows watching over her. However, as usual, the good times couldn't last forever, and as they decorated, memories began to resurface, uninvited and intrusive. Lena's childhood was filled with moments of chaos, fear, and uncertainty, which was overshadowed by her parents' tumultuous relationship. The holidays were often marred by arguments and tears, leaving little room for joy. The bright lights and cheerful songs reminded her of the darkness that lingered beneath the surface of her home life. But now that she was older, she was tired of Christmas being ruined by these feelings. She wanted to reclaim the holidays and finally make them a happy time. As the evening unfolded, the shelter came alive with activity. Volunteers filled the dining area with tables covered in festive tablecloths. Lena moved from task to task, her hands busy, while her mind wrestled with the memories that threatened to pull her under. She could hear the laughter of the less fortunate in the background, their voices bright and full of life, contrasting sharply with her own past. Just before dinner was served, Lena stepped outside for a moment of fresh air. The crisp winter night air nipped at her skin. She leaned against the side of the building, her breath visible in the cold air, and closed her eyes. As the memories washed over her, she found herself standing in the middle of her childhood home, the scent of burnt food filling the air as her parents fought in the next room. The scene replayed in her mind, a chaotic swirl of anger, the screaming and shouting, the shattered glass on the floor, the sound of the front door opening and then slamming shut, followed by the silence that always followed the storm. That is, a silence that was laced with the sound of her own crying. Lena had learned to hide away in her room, hoping the noise would fade. She had learned early on that love could be conditional, and that safety was an illusion. But as she came back to the present, where she stood outside the shelter, she remembered that here she was surrounded by the spirit of giving. Taking a deep breath, Lena opened her eyes and looked up at the stars. "This year is different," she whispered to herself. "I want to be part of something good." She remembered the words of a mentor who had once told her that healing comes from connection, from sharing love and kindness with others. It was time to embrace that lesson. Returning inside, Lena was greeted by a flurry of activity. The dining area was bustling with guests and volunteers, all coming together for the holiday dinner. Lena quickly busied herself with helping out, happy that she could be part of something larger than herself, part of a community united by a common purpose. "Lena, can you help serve the food?" Sarah asked, her voice cutting through the chatter. "Absolutely," Lena replied. As she moved from table to table, serving warm plates of food to those in need, she noticed the smiles on their faces, the genuine gratitude that filled their eyes as they looked at her. Each person she encountered had a story, a struggle, and yet they came together, finding peace and safety in each other's company. As Lena placed a plate of food in front of an elderly man, their eyes met. "Thank you, dear," he said, his voice shaky yet warm. "You can't imagine how much this meal matters to me." In that moment, Lena began to feel what she had been looking for. It was as if the weight of her past had been seen by this elderly man, and because of that, she was finally beginning the process of healing. Each smile she received, each word of gratitude, was a healing moment for her spirit. She realized that while her own past was filled with pain, she had the power to create joy for others, and in doing so, she could heal herself as well. The evening continued, filled with laughter, music, and heartfelt conversations. As the night wore on, Lena joined a group of guests gathered around the small Christmas tree. Their faces were lit up with excitement. They were decorating the tree with handmade ornaments, each one telling a story of its own. "Can I help?" Lena asked. "Sure," a little girl with pigtails exclaimed, handing Lena a glittering ornament. "This one is for my mom. She's sick, and I want her to feel better." She took the ornament, a simple creation of colorful paper and glitter, and placed it on the tree with care. As the children continued to decorate, Lena found herself sharing bits of her own story, connecting with them in a way that felt soothing, and they listened intently. "Your story is like a superhero story," one boy exclaimed. "You're so strong for helping others." Lena smiled through the bittersweet ache in her heart. "We all have our own stories," she replied, "but it's what we do with them that makes us strong." As the night drew to a close, the shelter was filled with friendship and love. People exchanged stories, laughter, and even tears, creating an experience that would be remembered long into the future. Lena looked around at the faces illuminated by candlelight, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. Sarah approached her, a knowing smile on her face. "You've really made a difference tonight, Lena. It's beautiful to see how your kindness touches everyone here." "Thank you, Sarah," Lena replied. her voice filled with emotion. "I didn't realize how much I needed this. Helping others is really healing for me, it seems." As they spoke, Lena felt hope blossom within her. She had stepped outside of her comfort zone, confronting her past while embracing the present. The laughter of the children, the gratitude of the adults, and the shared stories had created a warmth that penetrated the layers of hurt she had carried for so long. Before leaving, Lena took a moment to reflect on the evening. The decorations twinkled in the soft light, and the lingering aroma of food filled the air. She felt like she belonged, and a connection to something greater than herself. As Lena stepped outside into the crisp night air, the stars twinkled above. The holiday lights lit up the street, and the sound of laughter echoed in the distance. She knew that this holiday season would be different. It was no longer a time of fear and sadness. It had transformed into an opportunity for connection, love, and healing. With her heart full and her spirit lifted, Lena walked away from the shelter, ready to embrace the journey ahead. She understood that while the shadows of her past would always be a part of her story, they no longer controlled her. Instead, she would carry forward the lessons of love, compassion, and strength that she had discovered in the warmth of the shelter and the laughter of those she had met. In the days that followed, Lena continued to volunteer at the shelter, finding joy in the connections she had made and the lives she touched. She began to share her story more openly, connecting with others who had faced similar struggles. The act of giving became her salvation, a way to transform her pain into purpose. As the new year approached, Lena was hopeful for the future. She started to create her own holiday traditions, ones that honored her past while celebrating the joy of the present. She invited friends from the shelter to join her for dinner, ensuring that no one felt alone during the holidays. Together, they shared meals, laughter, and stories, creating a community that filled her with warmth. Lena realized that her journey was not about erasing the past, but rather embracing it as a part of who she was. Through her acts of kindness, she discovered a way to heal not just herself, but those around her. The holiday season had transformed from a time of solitude into a celebration of connection and love. As the first snow of the new year fell gently onto the ground, Lena stood outside, gazing up at the sky. She had a power to create a future filled with love, compassion, and connection. Lena smiled as she walked back inside her home, ready to embrace whatever lay ahead, her heart open to the possibilities of a brighter tomorrow. As the twinkling lights adorned the trees and festive decorations filled the neighborhood, Clara sat on the back porch of her cozy home, cradling a steaming cup of chamomile tea. The air was crisp and carried the sweet scent of spruce, signaling that the holiday season was in full swing. Yet, for Claire, the warmth of the season felt bittersweet, overshadowed by the aching desire for something that had remained just out of reach for too long. Each day brought a flurry of holiday activities, gatherings with friends, holiday parties, and cheerful carolers filling the streets. But for Claire and her husband Mike, this time of year was tinged with a heavy dose of longing. They had spent the past 2 years hoping and trying to conceive, all the while watching their friends blossom into pregnancy and parenthood. It was a constant recap of what they yearned for, but had not yet achieved. "Hey, love," Mike called from inside, his voice pulling Claire from her thoughts. "You ready for the tree?" Claire took a deep breath, pushing aside her feelings of sadness. "Coming," she replied, trying to sound cheerful. She joined him in the living room, where the scent of freshly cut pine filled the room. The tree stood tall and proud, waiting to be adorned with ornaments. It was a representation of the holiday spirit that they both loved. As they began decorating, Claire forced herself to focus on the joyous aspects of the season. Mike handed her a delicate glass ornament shaped like a snowflake, and she carefully hung it on a branch. "This one always reminds me of the first Christmas we spent together," he said, his eyes sparkling with recollection. "Remember how we stayed up all night wrapping presents and watching holiday movies?" Claire smiled, recalling the laughter and joy they had shared. "How could I forget? We were so determined to make it perfect." Mike chuckled softly. "We thought we were being so creative, and now I can't believe we actually thought wrapping a cat in a box was a good idea." Their laughter echoed through the room, but as the ornament hung, Claire felt the familiar knot of longing tighten in her chest. How she wished their Christmas tree would be adorned with handmade ornaments from a little one. As evening approached, they finished decorating the tree, stepping back to admire their handiwork. "It looks beautiful," Claire said, forcing a smile, despite the hollow feeling in her heart. "Just like us," Mike replied, wrapping an arm around her. "We make a great team." That night, as they cuddled on the couch with hot cocoa, Mike turned to her. "You know the holiday season can be tough. I want you to know that I'm here for you, no matter how you're feeling." Claire leaned her head against his shoulder. "I appreciate that, Mike. I just wish I could shake this sadness off, you know? It feels so heavy when everyone around us is celebrating." "We're allowed to feel what we feel," he said gently. "We've been through a lot together. It's okay not to be okay during this time." The following days were filled with holiday festivities, yet Claire found herself withdrawing from social events. She wanted to be supportive of her friends, but each baby announcement felt like a failure on her part. Sarah, her best friend, had just shared that she was pregnant, and while Claire's heart swelled with happiness for her, the familiar ache of envy gnawed at her. On a rainy afternoon, as Claire scrolled through social media, she stumbled upon another announcement from a college friend who had just welcomed twins. Tears sprang to her eyes, and she quickly set her phone down, feeling the weight of disappointment crashing over her. The bright holiday lights outside her window contrasted sharply with her mood, and she felt as if she were in a different world, one filled with joy and laughter, while hers felt dimmed by the shadows of unfulfilled dreams. Mike noticed her change in demeanor that evening and reached for her hand. "What's going on in that beautiful mind of yours?" Claire sighed, the frustration spilling out. "I don't know, Mike. I feel like I'm drowning in everyone else's happiness. It's just hard when I see all of these announcements. I want to be happy for them, but it hurts so much. I thought I could handle it, but—" "Hey," he said softly, lifting her chin so their eyes met. "It's okay to feel that way. You're not alone in this. I'm with you, and we'll get through it together. Have you thought about talking to someone? Maybe a support group?" Claire felt a flutter of fear at the idea. A support group? I don't know, Mike. What if it's just a room full of strangers sharing their sad stories? I don't want to sit there and cry. "It might not be like that," he said. "But if it is, that's okay. We've been carrying this burden alone for too long. Talking to others who understand might help." After much consideration, Claire agreed to look into the support group. It felt daunting, but the thought of sharing her story with others who understood the complexities of their emotions might not be so bad. The following week, they attended their first meeting. The community center was inviting, filled with couples who had faced similar struggles. As they took their seats, Claire felt vulnerable, yet she also felt safe amongst these strangers who shared their pain openly. Lisa, the group facilitator, began the session by sharing her own story, one that had been filled with heartache. Claire felt her heart begin to open as she listened, realizing that the stories being shared were filled with fragments of her own experiences. The discussions flowed, with each couple revealing their own struggles, and Claire suddenly felt a sense of connection that she hadn't experienced before. When it was her turn to share, Mike squeezed her hand as she spoke. "It's been difficult for us, We've been trying for 2 years to start a family, and every one of our friends' birth announcements feels like a reminder of what we don't have. Like a slap in the face, if that makes sense. I've been trying to be strong, but it's hard, she confessed, her voice trembling. As she spoke, she noticed tears glistening in the eyes of other couples. Their expressions reflected empathy and understanding. "You're not alone," one woman said softly. "It's okay to feel what you feel." The rest of the meeting flew by, filled with shared stories and encouraging words. Afterward, Claire and Mike lingered, chatting with a few couples. They exchanged contact information, and Claire felt a sensation of relief wash over her. For the first time, she realized that they were not alone in their pain. The following week brought an unexpected camaraderie and support. Claire and Mike began attending the group regularly, building friendships with couples who understood their struggles. They learned to celebrate each other's victories, no matter how small. Mike's laughter echoed in her ears as he chattered on with the other husbands. But as the holiday season grew near, Claire found herself grappling with the conflicting emotions that arose. While she knew she had support, the weight of their journey lingered. To combat this, they decided to host a gathering for the support group to celebrate the season. It was a chance for everyone to come together and share in both joy and sadness that the season brings to people who are struggling. The day of the gathering arrived, and Claire busied herself in the kitchen, preparing a spread of treats and warm drinks. She was excited and nervous at the same time as she arranged the decorations, trying to create an inviting atmosphere that would bring everyone together. As guests began to arrive, Claire felt her heart swell with gratitude. Mike welcomed them at the door, and Claire greeted each couple with a smile. The room was soon filled with laughter and chatter, and Claire watched as new friendships blossomed amidst the warmth of the gathering. As the evening progressed, they took a moment to share stories. Each couple spoke about their unique journeys, expressing their appreciation for the community that they had built together. Claire felt tears welling in her eyes as she realized how far they had all come, united by shared experiences. When it was Claire's turn, she took a deep breath, feeling the support of her friends surrounding her. "I just want to say how grateful I am for this group. Last year I felt so isolated, so filled with sadness during the holidays. But being here tonight, surrounded by all of you, I feel hope, and I didn't think that was possible. Thank you for being my family during this time." The room erupted in applause, and Claire felt the kindness of their connection. Mike beamed with pride as he wrapped his arms around her shoulders. The night continued with laughter, stories, and heartfelt moments, and as Claire looked around the room, she felt like she had changed a little bit. The ache in her heart hadn't disappeared, but it had transformed into something softer, something more manageable. They were still on their journey, but now they had a community to lean on, a network of love and understanding. As the evening came to a close, Claire and Mike stood at the door, thanking each guest as they departed. The last couple left, and they closed the door, leaning against it, with smiles on their faces. "That was incredible," Claire said. "I feel so uplifted." "Me too," Mike replied, pulling her into a gentle embrace. "You've been so strong throughout this journey. I'm proud of you." As the holiday season continued, Claire found herself navigating the complexities of her emotions with a newfound strength. The support group became a source of light in the darkness, allowing her to embrace the joys of the season while acknowledging her feelings. On Christmas Eve, Claire and Mike attended a candlelit service at their church, the soft glow of candles illuminating the sanctuary. As the music played and the congregation sang, Claire felt a peace wash over her. The flickering flames of the candles that surrounded them symbolized hope, and as she held Mike's hand tightly, she knew they were stronger together with every day that passed. That night, as they returned home, Claire spotted a small box on the table wrapped in shiny red paper. "What's this?" Mike grinned. "Open it." Quickly, Claire unwrapped the box, revealing a delicate silver bracelet adorned with tiny charms. Each charm represented a meaningful moment in their journey. An ornament for their first Christmas together, a tiny baby shoe symbolizing their hopes, and a snowflake representing the beauty of their unique journey. Tears filled Claire's eyes as she looked up at Mike, overwhelmed with emotion. "This is beautiful. Thank you." Mike smiled warmly. "It represents everything we've been through and all the hopes we have for the future. We'll get there, Claire. Together." The holiday season had not turned out as they had once envisioned, but it had transformed into something meaningful and beautiful in its own right. As the snow began to fall softly outside, Claire glanced at the twinkling lights of the Christmas tree. They may not have all of the answers, but they had each other, and for now, that was enough. In the warmth of their home, amidst the shimmering lights and the glow of hope, Claire knew that the journey that they were on would lead them to unexpected places. Places filled with love, understanding, and perhaps one day, the family they had always dreamed of. The crisp winter air carried a hint of pine and cinnamon, inviting Nora to step outside. She stood on her front porch, clutching a steaming mug of herbal tea, and took a deep breath. The holiday season was upon her, but instead of the usual excitement, a wave of melancholy washed over her. This year, as with many before, she felt like a ghost at the family gatherings, unseen and unheard, despite being surrounded by loved ones. Nora turned to watch her neighbors setting up their holiday decorations. Laughter echoed from the house around her, the joy of the season palpable in the air. Children ran around, their cheeks flushed from the cold, as they helped hang colorful lights and ornaments. The spirit of Christmas enveloped the neighborhood, yet for Nora, it felt like a wall. She longed to be part of that cheer, to feel seen and valued in a world that seemed to overlook her at every turn. "Hey, Nora, you coming in?" her husband Tom called from inside. His voice broke her reverie, reminding her of the warmth that awaited her inside the house. She turned and stepped back inside, where the familiar scent of gingerbread consumed her. "Yeah, just taking a minute," she replied, forcing a smile. Tom was already busy in the kitchen preparing for the family gathering that would take place in just a few hours. He was always the more enthusiastic one during the holidays, excited to host their extended family and bring everyone together. "Mom, can I help?" Their daughter Lily appeared at the doorway, her brown curls bouncing as she rushed into the kitchen. Nora felt the swell of pride looking at her daughter, who was filled with a vibrant energy that seemed to elude her. "Of course, we need all hands on deck," Tom encouraged, ruffling Lily's hair affectionately. Nora watched as the two of them worked together, laughter spilling from their mouths, while she quietly stood to the side, a shadow in her own home. As the afternoon progressed, the house filled with family. Nora's siblings and their children arrived, bringing a whirlwind of energy that filled every corner. The laughter echoed off of the walls as everyone exchanged stories and jokes, creating a symphony of camaraderie that made Nora feel more like an outsider. "Look, Aunt Nora, I made this for you." Lily's cousin, a bright-eyed boy named Jake, ran up to her, presenting a lopsided snowman he had crafted out of a cotton ball. Nora's heart swelled, and she knelt down to appreciate his artwork. "It's perfect, Jake. You're such an artist," she exclaimed, her voice full of genuine delight. Jake beamed, but before Nora could catch her breath, a loud cheer erupted from the kitchen. "Can everyone come to the dining room?" Tom called, his voice booming over the chatter. "Dinner's ready." Nora stood up, smoothing her dress, and followed the crowd to the dining room. As they sat down, laughter and conversation swirled around her, but she found herself drifting into silence. She offered a few polite comments, nodding along as stories were shared, yet she couldn't shake the feeling that she was merely a spectator in her own life. Throughout the meal, she noticed the way her sister Emily commanded attention. With her animated stories and infectious laughter, Emily had a way of drawing everyone in. Nora felt the familiar sting of invisibility as her family turned to her for a moment only when Emily urged them to appreciate her homemade pie. "What do you think, Nora?" Emily asked, her eyes sparkling with mischief. Nora forced a smile. "It's delicious, Emily. You always make the best desserts." But the words felt hollow, and she could feel the weight of their indifference settle over her. As dessert was served, the laughter grew louder, and the children started to play their games around the table, bringing chaos to the otherwise festive atmosphere. Nora sat, feeling the warmth of the room but sensing an emptiness within her. She had always been the one to organize family gatherings, the one who ensured that every detail was perfect. Yet with each year that passed, she felt herself fading further into the background. "Let's take a family picture," Tom suggested suddenly, and the room buzzed with excitement. Everyone scrambled to gather, leaving Nora behind as she stood awkwardly in her chair. "Come on, Nora, get in here," Tom beckoned, gesturing for her to join them. She forced a smile and moved to the edge of the group, but as the camera clicked, she felt like she was disappearing from the frame, her essence unacknowledged. As the evening wore on, Nora excused herself to the kitchen, seeking peace among the familiar sights and smells. She started tidying up, her hands moving automatically as her mind wandered. Why did she feel so invisible? Had it always been this way? Tom appeared behind her, catching her off guard. "You okay?" he asked, concern etched on his face. "Yeah, just cleaning up," she replied, avoiding his gaze. He placed a hand on her shoulder. "You've done so much for everyone today. You deserve to enjoy yourself too." "I know," she sighed, "but it's just hard. I feel like I'm fading away. Everyone seems to overlook me." Tom's expression softened, and he turned her to face him. "Nora, you're not invisible. I see you. I appreciate everything you do for our family. But you have to speak up, too. Don't let the noise drown you out." His words struck a chord within her. She'd always been the quiet one, content to support others while sacrificing her own voice. "I just wish they would notice me, you know?" she admitted, her voice barely a whisper. Tom nodded, pulling her into a gentle embrace. "They will. You just have to remind them that you're here." Nora took a deep breath, savoring the warmth of his support. "I'll try, I promise." As they returned to the living room, Nora felt a flicker of resolve ignite within her. She didn't want to be the quiet one anymore. She wanted to be seen, to have her voice heard, especially during the holiday season that had held so many memories and traditions. As the night continued, they played games and shared stories. For the first time, Nora decided to speak up. When the conversation shifted to holiday traditions, she shared her memories of childhood holidays, the warmth of her mother's embrace, the joy of crafting ornaments, and the laughter that echoed through their home. "It was magical," she said, her voice steady as she recounted her favorite memories. The room quieted, and she felt the weight of their attention. "I remember making hot cocoa, and how we would sit around the fireplace, just talking and being together. That is what I miss the most, feeling connected." A thoughtful silence fell over the group, and Tom smiled proudly at her. "Nora, those are some beautiful memories," he said. "We should start these traditions again. Let's make hot cocoa and share stories every year." Nora's heart swelled with warmth, feeling seen for the first time that evening. "I'd love that," she replied, a genuine smile spreading across her face. As the gathering continued, Nora noticed her family becoming more engaged, leaning in as she shared her stories. For the first time, she felt a sense of belonging, as if the walls that had kept her feeling invisible were slowly crumbling away. The evening wrapped up with laughter and cheers as everyone shared their holiday stories. Nora felt a shift within her, a budding sense of empowerment and recognition. Perhaps she had been waiting for her family to acknowledge her, but now she realized that she could take charge of her own narrative. As the guests began to leave, she caught Emily's eye. "Thanks for the pie, Em. It was amazing," Nora said, her voice filled with sincerity. Emily smiled back, her eyes twinkling with appreciation. "You always bring so much to our family gatherings, Nora. I'm glad you spoke up tonight." The next day, she reached out to her family and suggested that they start a holiday book club, sharing their favorite stories and traditions during the season. As December rolled on, the holiday gatherings became infused with fresh energy. They laughed, shared memories, and created new traditions. Nora found herself in the center of it all, her stories and memories cherished and celebrated. By the time Christmas arrived, the atmosphere was filled with a sense of belonging that had eluded her for so long. She marveled at how her family had come together, celebrating not only the season, but the bonds that had tied them. On Christmas Eve, as the snow fell softly outside, Nora sat in front of the fireplace with Tom and Lily, reading stories and sipping hot cocoa. The warmth of the fire surrounded her, and she felt a sense of peace wash over her. "Mom, tell us another story," Lily exclaimed, her eyes bright with anticipation. Nora smiled, her heart swelling with joy. "All right. How about the one about the Christmas star?" As she began to weave the tale, she felt the familiar warmth of connection wrap around her. She was no longer invisible. She was a vital part of their family, a voice that was heard and celebrated. The holiday season had transformed from a time of longing to one of connection, and for the first time in years, Nora felt truly seen. With her family gathered around her, she knew that her voice mattered, and as the stories flowed, so did the love and laughter that filled the room. In the glow of the firelight, surrounded by the people that she cherished the most, Nora realized that she had reclaimed her place in the world, and the spirit of the season had come alive in ways she had never imagined. The echoes of her voice no longer faded into the background. Instead, they resonated with the warmth of the holiday, leaving behind the shadows of invisibility. Thank you for listening to this episode of Story Loft. We hope these stories have touched your heart and inspired you to connect with those around you. Remember, your voice matters, and your stories are important. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more uplifting tales. If you have a story to share, we invite you to send it to storyloft@outlook.com. Let's continue to celebrate the power of storytelling together.